I don't even know if I'm going to be alive when I stop. Like, even if I die in this car, I will be happy. And, you know, they're trying to put a intravenous in me. I'm like, okay, great. And they can't get an intravenous in me because all my veins are like collapsed. I have like barely any blood pressure. So they're just like stabbing me at this point. I just feel all this pain, and they're like, oh, you have to calm down. You're losing a lot of blood. I'm like, what? I look down and like my whole arm was full of blood because they're just stabbing my arm, trying to get this thing in my arm because I'm like declining. My airways locked open and I started hyperventilating. Like, I'm going to die in this ambulance.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So tell me, I guess with everyone, I'm always so curious, like everyone comes from such different ways they come into motorsports, but tell me, you know, where you grew up, what your parents did for a living, paint the picture of the childhood, and then I'll...
Sure. So I was born and raised in St. Catharines, Ontario. And my dad's a cardiologist, and my mom was an RT. She was a respiratory therapist, and actually worked with my dad as an echo tech as well. So very medical family. And my dad is, we have Italian background, so my dad's a diehard Ferrari fan, and grew up watching Formula One. Okay. And yelling at the TV if Ferrari didn't win or whatever. And
really?
Just very like hardcore.
Yeah.
Very passionate, right? So
was he born in Canada?
He was. All my grandparents were born in Italy.
Okay, both sides?
Both sides, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and one of his patients actually suggested that my dad put me in karting. Okay. And so he had a shop and ran at a track in Batavia. In Buffalo.
New York. Yeah. I've raced there.
Yeah. So I don't think they have a karting track there anymore. I think it shut down not that long ago.
Just probably the dirt bike track.
Yeah, that's right. The dirt bikes were there. Yeah. And so I started racing there when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
So I remember my dad bought a used MBA.
Yeah, that was the big chassis down there, right?
Yeah. Used MBA.
Or Mike Wilson.
Yeah, that or Mike Wilson, that's right. And then they ran Hondas and Yamahas, and they didn't run. I don't know if they ran shifter. I was a kid. I don't really.
It was a cool track though, eh?
It was fun. It's pretty. The elevation was amazing.
Yeah,
and you could really, like, as a kid, it was really intimidating to take some corners flat out and stuff like that. But I had one of my friends there that I grew up racing with. We would always just pretty much go back and forth. Like, he would win one race and I would win the other race. And it's just like, oh, I forgot to block on the last lap, and he forgot to block on the last lap kind of thing. Yeah. And we just kind of like shared wins that way. But I don't know, I loved it from the very beginning. And just, being around my dad, and he's had his share of sport cars growing up as well. So he had a couple of Ferraris. He had a 944, then he had a 944 Turbo, and then an NSX. Yep. And then he had a 348 Spider. These are all like one after the other. He didn't have them all at the same time, but he just kind of kept progressing up and up and up. Then he had a 360 Modena, and then a 430, and then the racing got too expensive. So
was he racing all those cars?
No. He just those were his.
Oh, your racing
cars.
got too expensive.
My racing got too expensive. Yeah. So the Ferrari got sold, and so when eventually down the road, when the racing stopped for a bit, then he kind of got back into it. Got a Maserati. Now he's driving a Roma, a blue Roma. He always wanted a blue Ferrari. Yeah. But so growing up with this Italian kind of passionate heritage in racing and Ferrari, and just, being able to now drive myself, it was really cool. I really loved it. I just fell in love with it from the beginning.
So was that like the family focus to some degree on Sundays? Like, you guys were sitting in front of the TV?
It was, I have an older sister, but she's pretty much the opposite of me, and she's very quiet. She's an artist, and she's a classical singer, and she's very introverted that way, and just to herself. But and then I'm like, we have to go racing, we have to go this weekend, we have to do this, and whatever. I was all over the place, and my dad worked a lot as a
Sure.
cardiologist. He worked his ass off, and he still does. And on the weekends, he just wanted to go racing with me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And even though that wasn't really relaxing,
Yeah,
very stressful.
No.
The way he would coach me, he would be like, "Why are you slow?"
Yep.
And so it's just like, I don't know, I'm 10.
It's so funny, that learning curve, because, everyone of that generation, that's how you went to the track, just you and your dad, and you both learned together, right?
Yeah, and you both got mad at each other, and you started crying, and then you went faster, and so because you didn't want to get yelled at anymore.
I wasn't getting yelled at, but I was certainly crying, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. There's always tears, always. Yeah. Definitely.
That's funny. So when did it progress from just like club racing at Batavia to, I'm sure you guys heard of the tracks around here, and they might have been closer.
So as we were in the sport more and more, we were racing with more people. I think we did a race in Sutton. Honestly, I can't even remember where this race was. I think it was in Sutton or something, in Honda Junior. And then we kind of realized that there's more tracks around. And we met the Wickens.
Yep.
So Trevor and Rob Wickens and Tim and Lise and that family. And I started racing Rotax Junior. And that was the class Robbie was racing as well. He was kind of just finishing off his junior year, and I kind of just jumped into the junior two-stroke of the time. And Rotax just kind of came to Canada as well. It was like 02.
I remember
03.
that. Yeah.
And so I was racing Rotax at Mosport because that's where Robbie was racing and Trevor. And then we met the Champagnes as well.
Yeah.
Matthew, Andre Champagne
Yep.
and Matt Champagne and Andrew as well was racing also. And then Matt was kind of like more of a mentor. He coached me a lot. He helped me a lot, actually, just at being like a friend around the track. And then Andre had his team, and I'm just kind of like throwing things off now, and it's all kind of rolling back. So
you went to Mosport Kart Club.
Yeah, so I started racing at Mosport to answer your question.
No, for sure, because it's so funny. I remember that time because we went from Waterloo Kart Club to Mosport Kart Club in 03.
Okay. So we were probably...
I'm a little bit younger than you, but yeah.
So what were you racing?
I went there for novice, and then...
Okay, because I was racing in 03 at Mosport. That's really cool.
So I remember like the junior Rotax, there was like 3 or 4 guys in the class.
Yeah, there weren't very many, and we had the PTKs, the Paul Tracy carts.
Yep.
And
because that's probably what Robbie was on at the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he was racing. He was racing like 2 or 3 different categories at the same time as well.
Right.
And he would just drive circles around us as well. He's just so much better than us at that level.
Right.
They had him and Trevor had an amazing kind of camaraderie together.
Yeah, they had it going on for sure.
Absolutely.
So when did it, were you guys were having like enough success at the club level that it's like, okay, now everyone's going on these other weekends to the Ron Fellows Championship? Is that where it went?
So there was the Barrie Grand Prix,
right.
and the Ron Fellows Championship. We were racing that as well as the Mosport stuff.
Yeah.
And then we went to Cameron Motorsports, which was Hamilton.
Yep.
We call it Canadian Mini Indy now. And we moved to CRG because PTK was CRG. I honestly don't even know the behind the scenes to a lot of it because I was a kid.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
just know we just started racing CRG.
Yeah.
And so then Trevor and Robbie, and then I met other drivers like Maxime Pelletier from Quebec. And then we had some of the Quebec guys come and race. And we had a nice team, nice unit, and I was racing. And when we moved to Hamilton, then I was racing shifters.
Did you go to 80 or 125?
We went straight to 125 because the 80 just stopped.
Right.
As
I
soon
remember
as
that.
it was like 05.
05, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's when I started racing shifter, right when 80 stopped, because I was going to race 80 because I was still like 14, 15.
Yeah.
And to drive a shifter, because I'm racing them sometimes now. And I'm just like, how the hell did I drive this when I was 15, when I was like a pipsqueak?
Yeah. 100%. I remember that well, because I was bugging my dad, like, we got to race an 80. We got to race an 80. And then it's like, oh, sorry.
The 80 is such a good package.
Yeah, it's no more. So I still convinced him to buy a used 80, like, out of the States, and I ran it just at Mosport when I was like 12.
Okay.
And we still drive them like today,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's like, how the hell was I just doing this when I was 12 years old?
Yeah, and it's such a good tool for younger drivers to build on as well. Because I work out of Mosport, I coach a lot of the kids there with pro racing, and if a kid wants to go into a shifter, like, throw them in the 80, because it's the easiest way to transition.
Yeah, it's not such a shock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I didn't have that luxury.
No,
I went straight to
power,
raw power.
Was that a big adjustment?
Honestly, it was huge. It was great, but I loved it. I'm like, oh my God, this is so sweet. I'm just getting sent back in the seat all the time. Like, I have to really focus on what my foot's doing, because it's going to snap my head off. Yeah. Pretty much. So it's really, you really get in tune with your ability and your natural feel to drive these things, like, because you become a part of them. It's like, if you move, it moves kind of thing, like, instantly, more than anything you'll ever drive, really. So it's you really learn that incredibly quickly, and it's one of the classes where you learn it or you don't. Like, if you can do it, you can do it. If you can't, like, you'll never be able to do it. Yeah. And it really separates, not, no pun intended, the men from the boys, because you're like 15 turning into 16, 17, 18. Yeah. Going from a boy to a man. But as a driver, you're really getting pushed to your absolute limit in every way. Yeah, and so that was probably 05, 06. Yep. And you're running against, like, a stout field of guys. Yeah, so when I was running Stars of Karting as well in the States, so we had Gary Carlton, and then Mike Vincek was on our team as well, and so all the CRG guys. So we had a really stacked team. And I'm just kind of trying to survive. And Marcelli too, right? Kyle, Kyle was racing with us. Mike DeMeo, Curtis Fox raced with. He was Burrell. Then he did some races. No, he never raced CRG. Yeah, but we raced. Did he? Yeah. Oh yeah, he did. He did. Yeah. He did. I have Ron Fellows pictures with us on the podium. Yes, he did.
So you figured it out in those couple years.
Yeah, so, you get, as being on the team, you get mentored by the other drivers, and then just by driving. But you know what? It was actually pretty difficult, because there were no real, like, designated driver coaches, and data was kind of there, but, like, you needed this GPS module that needed to be leveled, and if it was off your floor pan a little bit, it wasn't reading. Yep. So sometimes it would read weird lines, and we couldn't trust it. So we'd reach out to our teammates or our friends around the paddock. But, as a kid, you kind of get selfish. You don't want to help someone else be faster than you. So you'd get a lot of advice that's wrong. Oh, yeah. Like, oh, yeah, turn one's flat. Yeah. It's like, once.
Yeah. It's yeah, on the first lap. It's so funny how you learn that at such a young age, like how sneaky everyone is around the paddock.
Yeah. This deception, it's just crazy, and you really learn how to trust yourself, and how to really dig deep into your abilities, and it's like, is this fast, is this not fast, and just having that ability to do that. So changing something up, okay, I see a guy pulling away from me, I need to change something up. Was that faster? Some people are like, oh, I don't know, I just tried it. I don't know whether it was better or not, and they have to look at data to know. Right. And some people will just feel it and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that every lap, and then they'll reel the guy in. Yeah. And, it's but to do that, you really need the fitness and that subconscious, like, voice to talked you through all the stress, right?
Yeah.
Because you did a shifter race with us last year,
and it was
right?
like, okay, like, so it was I had driven a shifter now for like 4 laps at a time twice before that, like, and a shifter, I mean a 125.
Okay.
And it took like every ounce of, every brain cell I had to try and figure this thing out quickly, because it's so different than all the other go-karting I've done. And Timmer's finally helped me. He's like, I'm like, dude, I'm just freaking bouncing around the corner. Like, it's just bucking me. Yep. He's like, a shifter has the slowest apex speed out of almost any kart.
Yeah, that's right.
And as soon as he told me that, I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I know how to drive this. It's like a dirt bike.
Yeah, I guess so. I've never driven a dirt bike, but yeah, you have to really stop at apex, turn it, and shoot the cannon and launch out. Yeah. But so when it rains, when we do these races at the end of the year and it rains, we're like, oh, yes, because we don't want to get destroyed by the end of the race.
Dude, I wouldn't have last. if it didn't rain, I was just praying for rain the whole time. And that it would, and even in the rain, that race, I had to crack my visor because I was just fogging up. I was breathing like a maniac.
You're going like anaerobic almost, you're really like panting hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Way harder than, like, I thank goodness they're such sprint races, because I can't imagine.
Well, there's no resting time,
no.
Right? And then the seat, you want a seat that's kind of tight so you can barely breathe in it. You have maybe and then you have a nice tight rib protector. So your lung capacity is probably at like 50%.
Yeah, good point.
So you have to be like overly fit and relaxed, because if you're stressed, then you're just sucking oxygen and you're not breathing.
Yeah.
And just being relaxed and breathing and kind of like knowing how to position your body and which muscles to fire at a certain time really can help you last, the 5 more laps you need to finish the race kind of thing.
Yeah. And you just fall out of the seat after.
Yeah. Or you fall out of it upwards.
Yeah.
It's so low.
Yeah, exactly. So how did like the end of your shifter kart career, like how was your confidence, and how did you kind of shake out there?
So it was actually quite good. I was really lucky to have won a shootout, a Ron Fellows shootout.
Yep.
So we did the Bridgestone Racing School. So me and Mike Vincek actually won. We were one of the 20 or 30 drivers chosen out of the Ron Fellows Championship to participate in that shootout.
Yep.
And then Mike and I won it. Because I could drive a car way better than I could drive a go-kart.
Really?
Yeah.
And that was your first foray into racing cars?
That was, I think, one of them. I was in the midst of testing Formula BMW
already
as well.
At that time?
Yeah,
okay.
I did, I think, one test with a really low-budget team. It was almost worse to do that. You have to unlearn so much stuff. But, yeah, so we won that shootout and raced a couple races in the Skip Barber Eastern category. And however, I did a shootout in Valencia, Spain as well with Formula BMW.
Right.
So that's the same thing that Wickens did, Morad did.
Yeah, I was going to say, because all those guys, or I haven't had Wickens on yet, but Morad was telling me that, he did that. And were you there at the same time, or was he a year before?
I was 2 years after Daniel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it was like Hinch, then Robbie, Daniel, and then myself.
Okay.
Yeah. I was 08. So I did this shootout in 07 and then raced with a scholarship. So I won that shootout as well.
Was that before you had done a season in the U.S.?
Of
Formula BMW?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So you got an invite right there. How did that work?
So it's pretty much you pay for a spot and you can go race, or not race, you go do a kind of scholarship, like a shootout in a school kind of thing. Yep. So they have actual BMW instructors from Germany, and they have a fleet of cars, and you drive and they assess you. They do all these kinds of exercises. They do media exercises. They do, everything on track, braking, downshifting, heel toe, everything. We still had sequential boxes, and and I won that.
You won the shootout.
I won the shootout. So I was one of the 3 drivers chosen, and then the winner of the rookie championship from the previous year gets a scholarship. So 4 drivers in total get a scholarship. And they give you like $80,000 US to race Formula BMW as like a factory junior Formula One, like driver.
You're part of that program now.
Yeah, it was like their junior Formula One program essentially.
Cool.
So going back to the Ron Fellows thing, it sucked because, you know, I wanted to represent the Ron Fellows and the Sunoco and everything, but if I did more races in Skip Barber, it was going to take away from my rookie status, and I wouldn't have been able to actually race as a rookie in Formula BMW, so I had to stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that like, your level of confidence must have changed from, you know, your last couple years in a shifter kart to, holy cow, now I've won this shootout in Spain.
Yeah.
Like, I'm better than I thought I was.
Honestly, yeah, it was, you know, I always believed in myself.
Sure.
And, you know, even just, like I said before, with people like trying to coach you wrong so you're not faster than them, you know truly what you're capable of doing. But I never really thought about how good I was or how bad I was. I just loved driving.
Right.
I just drove the thing as well and as beautifully as I could.
Right.
And that to me was just, it gave me the best satisfaction.
Yeah, okay.
So I never even thought about that. And until you actually like said it right now.
Right. Right, so, sure, okay. But leaving Spain, you must have been like, okay, there's something here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And there's a huge push to generate funding for the season. So we my dad spent a lot of money, but we also had money from BMW. We had money from family and friends and stuff like that. So, you know, and then luckily I was able to win prize money throughout the year and stuff like that, which helped almost pay off a whole other season with the scholarship. So it was, everything was happening the way it kind of needed to move forward. And then I ended up winning the rookie championship that year. So I got another scholarship for the next year. So it definitely helped, you know, continue racing.
Yeah. So how'd the second year go?
It was tough. So the first year we had Alexander Rossi as the guy kind of to beat, and he won the championship in the end. And so I won actually the first two races of that season in Laguna Seca. And then politics, and I don't even want to say what we think and what we know actually happened, but I didn't win anymore. Let's just put it that way. I was very, very far from winning ever again from in that championship. In that year, after I won the first two races, something changed, and I was so like 9/10 a second off sometimes. So anyways, that happened.
Frustrating.
Oh yeah. And you know, you don't get worse as you go throughout the year. You usually get better. But anyways, I finished third in the overall and first in the rookie championship. That actually, I keep bouncing around, but it's just so much has gone on in those first 2 years of my car open wheel career that I had a crazy last race battle for the rookie championship as well with Michael Grenier.
Yeah.
So he's, I think, racing DTM now. So very good driver, very good. And it was just one of those things where, you know, if I finished in front of him, he won, or I won. If he finished in front of me, he won. And, you know, we actually made contact in one of the corners. He spun and I didn't, and I finished, and they didn't penalize any of us really because it's just a racing incident. It's just an incident, like Charles Leclerc would say. But
sure.
Sorry, my meme brain has turned on. And
big internet guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I love the internet. But yeah, so I ended up winning the rookie championship in like the last race. So it was a pretty special moment. And then going into that last year, it was much harder. We had Gabby Chavez as the competitor for me. It was just pretty much me and him and another driver competing for wins, essentially. Right. And I won only one race that year. It was at Mossport at the end of the year, actually, the home race. But I finished third in that year as well with more points, but still third regardless. And racing Gabby was actually pretty cool. He's a very good racer. And yeah, just with the prize money. And then we got trained a lot by like being a BMW junior driver, they called it. You're part of that Formula One light, and they treated you like a Formula One driver. They gave you media training. Like your interview response needs to be 12 seconds long.
Okay.
Very German.
Yeah.
It can't be less. It can't be more. Don't ask a question back. Don't say don't say don't play with your face. Do up your suit. Like all of that stuff's like burned into my brain, even though I say and do all this other stuff anyways, but whatever. It's just, they teach us this as, because we're representing them.
Yeah, sure.
You have children. I'm like barely 18 years old, 18, 19 years old, representing, multi-billion-dollar manufacturer. So of course we have to get trained. And so those 2 years for me were crucial because they really taught me how to be professional, not just on the track, but as well off the track.
So at the end of that, now, how does the conversation go? Like, hey, I'm clearly having fun, super successful. Where does the ladder take me? How do you guys conceptualize the next step and figure out what to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I wanted to race, like everyone wants to race Formula One. Everyone wants to race in Europe. So I wanted to race in Europe. I wanted to see where I stood, see how I could compete with people in Europe. And if that's the standard, I need to go there. Because I hadn't raced there before. I hadn't raced there in karting. I only raced in the States.
Right.
And in North America, I've never raced overseas. And so during my last year of Formula BMW, we did a test in the Italian F3.
Okay.
So back when they were still individualizing the different categories of Formula 3 by country almost.
Right.
And so the 2009 season of 2009. When did I race it? Yeah, I raced 2010. So I raced my first race in 2009 with Corbetta, like the Minardi kind of F3 team. And I actually scored points. It was a rain race in Vallelunga, and I scored points. I came 9th out of like a 30-car field.
Wow.
So once I kind of did that, and then we were still racing for the BMW, and I won my last race, like, okay, like, we need to do this. Like, it'll be a waste if I can't race in Europe. We've done everything thus far. I've won these competitions. I've had this family support, and we've had fundraisers and friends support us as well. And, we need to make the jump. And then, so the 2010 championship that I raced full on was, the prize was a Ferrari F1 test.
Wow, as like a kid from Formula 3 to an F1
you
test.
get to drive. So what car did they drove? The 2008 Formula 1 cars, like the crazy aero ones.
Ferrari?
Wow. Yeah. So Ferrari, I guess, sponsored the prize.
For the F3 Italian series.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this championship was stacked.
Right.
There were so many people racing this. So we had like a 30 to 35 car field in Italian F3. And we raced all of the tracks in Italy: Misano, Vallelunga, Monza, Imola, Mugello. And it was crazy.
That must have been like once you got over there, like just a pinch yourself moment.
Honestly, I felt so comfortable because I'm a very aggressive racer.
So are those guys.
I piss a lot of people off when I race, but like, I'll give you a choice, if you want to go off, you can. So if you don't, then you won't. I give you complete control. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not going to deliberately turn into you and push you off the track and potentially take myself out. But if you want to go off, you can. So that's and then I took inspiration from Gilles Villeneuve, and just such a raw, like, driver and just like a gladiator. You have to think. I tell young kids like this all the time, like, you're in a fight. When you're in a race, you're fighting literally with a vehicle. So you have to have finesse, you have to have smarts, you have to have strategy, and you can't, be a pushover. You have to be aggressive in a respectful way. Respect is number one. But, if you respect someone else, they'll respect you. And if you don't respect somebody else, expect it right back.
Sure.
And so going to Europe and going on, the first practice session, of course I'm nervous. And then, you get someone just like completely just send you off in the middle of the straightaway. Just like what you see in the highlight reels, just cause you're there. And I'm like, it's a bit of like a mind, like maybe like unleash the beast moment and like an awakening moment. It's like, oh, you can do that here. This is great. And like, not that, we're driving people off left and right, but the racing room is incredibly minimal. I'll just say it that way. If there was room for you to go, there was exactly room for you to go, or for you to stay. If you're racing side by side, someone's defending, they'll defend until you're like on the white line, almost touching the grass kind of thing.
Right.
So like if you want to pass, you need to either go or you're not going to go. It's not like, oh, I'm just kind of move in the middle of the straightaway. Oh, you still went anyways kind of thing. It's you're either defending or you're not defending. And if you're defending, you're defending to keep your position, not just because.
Right.
So racing that, you explore all of these creative ways to race, and still within the rules, of course, but with the Italian F3, not a lot of stuff gets called. There's a lot of engine discrepancy. There's a lot of shady stuff going on. So you need to sometimes make it up on the track, and no one really bats an eye because everyone knows what's going on. So it's playing the politics and playing the aggressivity level, and just I don't know. I always enjoyed it. I still do, and just thinking about it, just reminiscing about it, it's bringing back really great feelings.
Yeah. So how did you guys, how did that conversation go with your family? Like, hey, I'm moving to Italy, or did you move that year?
I moved by myself, essentially. I lived there. We talked to a lot of people. We talked to a lot of people around, like, what direction kind of should I go to, and where should I go? Should I race European Formula 3? Should I race Italian F3? It's like similar price, but European F3 is way more expensive. Well, not similar price, but different. Anyways,
big money.
Big,
regardless.
Stupid money, right? And we started racing Italian F3 just to get my feet wet, just to see if, I would sink or swim.
Mm-hmm.
And, my dad, being the passionate racing enthusiast he is, especially with the whole Ferrari prize and stuff, I'm sure had something to do with it. And, my dad wanted to support me all the way until Formula One if he could. He said, because that was guaranteed. He's like, if I can support you, I'm very thinking about it, and I'm incredibly lucky to have a support unit like that. And just, he's like, if I could support you all the way to the top, I could. And he got to a certain point where he couldn't really anymore. That's later on. But he sacrificed a lot and worked a lot, and then then there goes the Ferrari, and then there goes house gets remortgaged and all this other stuff, and we were going for it. We were going for it. And
so that was like, you guys sat down even at that first year, like, hey, this is the goal or bust.
Yeah, it's like we either do it or we don't do it.
Sure.
And being in the Formula car world, you go for gold or you don't. You start racing GT cars.
Right. You're not gonna be it's not like you could make a living like you can in the Xfinity series or the truck series.
Yeah,
you can't just run GP2 or F3 and make a living there.
No.
You're paying a lot of money to be there, and that is purely a stepping stone.
Yes. Yeah, it's a purpose. It's a purpose year kind of thing. You have all these growing years, and then the way they see it, it's like you have your rookie year where you learn and perfect, and then you have your winning year,
right?
Where the next year you go for gold,
right?
And you go for the wins.
So how'd that first year in Italy go?
It was tough. It was very, very hard. Just for me personally, because I didn't speak Italian.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you learn Italian?
I learned
a little
Italian.
bit.
I'm fluent now.
Yeah. So you learned it at an older age.
Yeah, and I learned it there. So I actually still can't understand my parents when they speak Italian. I learned very posh Italian.
Yeah, that's
right?
funny.
So very posh Italian, and it's like learning English in England, right? You don't have an American accent or use American slang. It's all it's very different. And so,
well, it's funny. Like, I was in Germany, and you hear all these Germans speaking with an English accent in English, and you're like, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah, I have so many Italian friends. Like, Jim, I want to speak English like you, not with the British. I want to go to the club. It's like, oh, okay. I want to go to the club. Oh, I want to go to the club. And they can't say certain things, but
that's funny.
It's so good. Yeah.
So it was a tough year.
Man, it was hard because the competition was insane, right? So I came from a very big high, right?
Yep.
Racing in North America, winning, even just scoring points in my first race in the year prior in Italian F3 in my one-off race. And then I'm with the top team, and my teammates are first and second place in the championship, and I'm like way off. And I had to learn how to drive a super aggressive car. I kind of felt like Perez in Red Bull, where, the car is suited to the absolute maximum level. And because you're not quite there yet as a rookie driver, you can't make the car do what it needs to do to be fastest.
Right.
So I was really struggling, and I had a lot of conflict with engineers because they're like, Jimo, you're American, you don't know what you're talking about, and you don't have enough experience. Just drive this, and then you get within half a second, and then we'll talk, kind of thing.
So they wouldn't make changes for you?
No, and honestly, it was healthy because they were right, and not all the time.
Sure.
But they were right for that part.
To a degree, yeah.
Because one of my assets as a driver is I have very good feel. I love just developing a race car. So there was this one instance where I could feel what was going on, like the car has understeer. And sometimes it's really difficult to realize what the car's doing, because a lot of the high, like, it's really fast. Like you're going into these rolling speeds. We had higher rolling speeds in some cases than F1 in some corners because we were lighter.
Right.
And like low speed corners, we actually had higher rolling speed just because of sheer weight.
Right.
And so when you're, turning in flat for a corner, it's like, is it understeering because I didn't lift off the gas smoothly enough? Is it understeering because it actually is understeering and the geometry is wrong? Is it understeering because the arrow's, imbalanced, or did I damage my wing? Or it's like, there's so many things that can contribute to an imbalance that you need to know what it is.
Right.
And if it's the setup, you don't know if it's the setup yet because you don't have the experience to know if it's not these other things.
Right.
So as a rookie, it's hard to decipher all of that as you're driving, and your average heart rate's like 160, you're hitting 3 Gs, and it's just like, it was not easy. Right. And then, then I'm getting yelled at in Italian, and I don't know what's going on. I want to know what's going on. I think I understand, but I don't understand. And yeah, and I wanted to win, and I wasn't winning, and it was frustrating.
Right.
I was like, I wasn't even scoring points initially. And yeah, but we then realized there's a huge engine discrepancy. The top guy was just 10 kilometers an hour faster than anybody down the straight, even my teammates that were competitive for wins and stuff. And it was just kind of luck of the draw. You got a good motor, you didn't get a good motor.
Really?
So there was all spec motors. We were running Fiat motors, 2-liter 4-cylinder naturally aspirated. They ran like 250 horsepower, and then there was like a release saying, oh yeah, the engines have a 10% discrepancy. It's like, well, 10% is like,
that's a lot.
Huge, dude. It's like 25 horsepower in a 550 kilo car. Like, what? So then other people started going faster, and I don't know whether there was a secret we didn't find out, but years later, my team owner told me that my engine was shit. But anyway, so that didn't help, right? I did have a good moment like halfway through the season at Imola. I went from like 15th to like 8th in the first lap, and just I scored points, and it was great. And then you kind of get that good feeling again, and instead of getting torn down and like you get praised, and people start listening to you now because you're actually driving the car the way it's supposed to be driven, and you really tap into that it's kind of like that jump from, you know, Rotax to shifter. It's kind of from North America to Europe, and driving F3 in Europe, you really have to know your shit. Like, you really need to know what's going on, and you can't have any limitations physically. You can't have any limitations mentally as well. You need to be you have to have super clarity and no distractions. You have to be very flexible as well. You know, there's so much intimidation factor. Like, that's just on track. Then off track, people will say like they slept with your girlfriend. People will, you know, they'll badger you, and they're assholes. And it's just like, because you're fighting, you're gladiators. Like, you want to like kill each other kind of thing. And it's just, you can't, you know, some people can't just be nice when they have to kind of transform into that savage on track. So, you know, I'm still like 19, 20 years old, I was 20 years old, and, you know, it was very hard, and I was living by myself. I think my mom helped me move in like the first 2 weeks. Like, this is how you order food at the grocery store, and this is how you recharge your cell phone. Because I had no internet on my phone. I had a phone. I put $10 on it every month so I could call and text. I had a little internet key.
Yeah.
The USB stick, like a 4G, 3G stick that went into my computer, so I could watch, and I had like 10 gigs a month of data, so I could watch like maybe 2 movies a month on my computer. I couldn't stream Netflix, and you know, if I wanted to talk to somebody, you can do a Skype call, but I couldn't do it for too long because I wouldn't have internet for the rest of the month. And it wasn't like it is today.
Yeah.
I'll just put it that way.
No kidding.
And I didn't have friends to go out and like learn Italian, learn certain things, so I stayed home a lot, and I just trained a lot. And I actually got noticed at one of the races by Formula Medicine. So Formula Medicine is a professional driver training center based in Tuscany.
Okay. Like Pit Fit for Italy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly like Pit Fit. So the owner is Dr. Ceccarelli, and he's a Formula One doctor as well, and hires a lot of other doctors that work in the paddock of F1. So he's developed this amazing center in Tuscany to develop every kind of racer. And they do tennis players as well, and they do a lot of rehab as well with, an example of that was Robert Kubica, who did a lot of rehab there after his rally accident.
Okay, yeah.
You know, he's been working in F1 since the 80s, since Senna and Schumacher, all this kind of stuff. So there's a ton of experience in racing. So, you know, they saw me, and you know, they're like, you know, where do you live? Do you live on your own? Do you do this? And so he's like, do you want to live at this driver training facility that we do? And I've heard about it before, just being in the paddock, but I never really knew what it was. And I was just kind of training on my bike, and I had a personal trainer in Canada, and just kind of doing what I felt I needed to do. If my, you know, deltoids were stiff after a race, I'd do more deltoids during work. I didn't really know exactly what to do. So then, you know, and by the end of my first year of F3, I thought I was really fit and I could drive a race, no problem. And then I go to Formula Medicine and get fitness tests and just get my ass kicked.
Really?
And just like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm pretty fit. And just like, you're not even close. I was like maybe the average, like just at the average of like the drivers that go there.
Right.
And I didn't want to be average.
Yeah,
I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the fittest one. And so I moved there, and I lived there for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
5 years. Dude, that's like becoming a monk.
Yeah, man. So by the end of that, they were using me to develop the fitness tests.
Wow.
So like if we could beat them and finish them, then they weren't hard enough because they weren't supposed to be beaten. So they would use us because we were there. There's times I was training 9 times a week.
Holy cow.
So, you know, I'd wake up, go to the gym, go home, eat lunch, have a nap, and then go for a bike ride or go to the gym again or go for a run or whatever.
That's like a true professional athlete.
Yeah. I was living, breathing, racing.
Right.
And I was living as a true athlete. I would like eat 4,000 calories a day, and I weighed 10 pounds lighter than I do now, actually. And yeah, it was intense. And yeah, I was picking up the language. I had a girlfriend for 2 years in Italy, and I had a group of friends with another driver. and was friends with his friends from school, and just to learn like the street Italian, like the young street Italian. It's difficult.
Sure, yeah,
You learn, you get the hang of it, and yeah. So I lived in Italy for 6 years total, on my own.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what kind of training were they doing? Like all race car specific stuff, or just total overall fitness?
Everything. So like in terms of sports, kind of, we did to just as an activity, we'd play soccer, we'd play volleyball. We do a lot of mental stuff as well, a lot of mental economy, they called it, and mental efficiency. So how much brain capacity are you using when you're stressed, right? Because when you're stressed and you're huffing and puffing, your thinking goes out the window.
Totally.
And your adrenaline takes over. Your adrenaline makes you stupid. So if you can do the work without using that adrenaline, you're going to be smarter, and then in a racing situation, you're going to have an upper hand. So they taught us how to relax and how to recover and how to also, beat the crap out of ourselves as well. And sometimes we would do, my brain's going all over the place now because it's just like, what did you do there? We did
lots of shit.
We did a lot of shit. But some of the craziest stuff we did when I was training for Singapore was we were doing heat training. So it's like June, July in Tuscany is like 40 degrees.
Oof. And
we would go at like noon, 1 o'clock, and we would run intervals on the Lungomare, on the boardwalk. And we would do a kilometer on and like 4 minutes off, and a kilometer on, 4 minutes off. So we'd run a kilometer as hard as we could, and then we'd rest for 4 minutes, and then we'd go again. We did that for 10K. And it was just like, and we could do it. And so at that point, I was like maybe my 4th, 5th year there. And so like we were pretty fit. And then there was a new trainer like, oh yeah, go with these guys. They're doing some heat training. You can run with them. And like we just kicked the shit out of this trainer pretty much. And he almost had heat stroke. It was pretty bad. We're like, hide under this bush. Yeah. And the ocean's right there. Like you have to go into the water right now or else you're like going to die. So, but that was the best because then you'd go straight into the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. And like your muscles wouldn't get stiff at all because they just have like kind of like an ice shock kind of thing. No, well, not ice. It wasn't that cold, but
cold. Yeah,
it was nice salt water. It was amazing. It was just the perfect environment to train. And sometimes we would run or ride 100 kilometers just for fun, like on our off days, and through the mountains of Carrera. There's like all white marble mountains and stuff like that. We were riding for hours. Sometimes we would just do a half marathon because we wanted to and see if we could do it, how fast we could do it. Wow. And we could. What did we do? We did forearm training. We did like how can we like fatigue our forearms the most? What's the workout that can, like, we were just being creative. What can we possibly do to completely destroy our forearms?
Right.
And like by the end of it, if you wanted to like make a fist as fast as you can, it was like super slow. Like your muscles were completely fatigued. And we would do circuit training. We would do circuit training with like resting and playing like ping pong against a ping pong machine, and like to recover.
Right.
It's like completely bombard your brain as you're like as your heart rate's at like 200.
Right.
And we would, what else would we do? We would do a lot of stuff like run around and then go inside and like do a circuit training, and then like to recover, go outside and run around the gym again, and in like the sun and the heat, and just get conditioned that way. So you're like relaxed, and if you weren't relaxed, you weren't going to be able to do it, kind of thing. Right. And then every month we would have a fitness test. So we would have either a bike, a running test, or an erg. So what would it be? I don't even know what it's in English. A trazione, they would call it.
The hand bike?
The hand bike, yeah. And,
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Just a fire.
Just a fire. You want me to stop?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, we're good. So we would, so the kind of, if you could finish all 3 tests, you were like the 1% of the 1%. Like the only driver that wasn't a Formula Medicine driver to finish it was Bruno Spengler. He could do all 3 and just finish all of them. He was so fit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, but yeah, so like if we were training, we would train to beat the tests. Like, this is how bored we would get sometimes. It's like, okay, we're training. Okay, I want to do more running because I want to beat the running test. Or we updated the running test and now you can't beat it anymore. It's like, oh yeah, I'm still going to beat it. And then you train and then you'd beat it. But then you can't beat the bike test because your legs are more lean and you don't have the mass to get the wattage and, the last 2 minutes. And it's just like, okay, but then you just train too much on the bike and now your upper body is too slim and you can't do the. So it was we really nailed the kind of dynamic of that fitness testing. So it was really cool. And then we did a lot of neck training. Like I could hold 12 kilos on the side of my head for 5 minutes straight.
Wow.
And, we would hang with like a TRX and it would be attached to like one of those luggage, like spring weights. And like we would have a trainer just looking at it with a stopwatch. And if it went under, he would stop or give you a warning. He'd be like, you went under like twice. If you do it one more time, you're done. And so you're just like trying to like pull this thing as long as you can. And that was like more mental than anything. Cause like you can't even feel these muscles on the side of your neck anymore. And just then when you stop, it's a lot of pain. It was really painful, but it was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
That's cool. That's the way to do it for sure.
Yeah.
So you move there and then your second season of F3? Do you go to the European Championship?
So I raced the FIA European F3.
Okay.
So
was that any kind of like sit down with your family, or is like that's the next step? That's what we're doing.
The move. So that was a difficult move. We made a mistake with the team we went with initially because with my Formula 3, my Italian F3 season at the tail end, I had a test that I hadn't used. I think one of the races got canceled or postponed, and I couldn't use the test that we already paid for. And so I just, my team owner is like, the championship's over, but you have a test, so let's use it kind of thing. Let me use it. And, because he's like, it's probably better than giving you a refund because you need to test anyways. As I was testing, this was in Valencia, Spain, and it's one of the tracks I have a lot of experience on. That's where the Formula BMW shootout was. So I really liked the track. And I was like driving really well. I was just driving my A game. And just one of those days where everything is just great. Mm-hmm. And Renger van der Zand was the scout of this team called Motopark that was based in Germany. And they had an FIA F3 team, and they were sharing the track with us. So he was coaching some of their drivers because he was a driver of theirs as well. But he was coaching them and saw me drive the absolute crap out of this car, like just like wiggling the car and exit, barely like dropping a wheel, kicking up dust in the exits, and just like it was great. And I was only like a second off the European guys, and they had faster cars. So it's just like, this guy's probably on par with us. And so they approached me in the paddock. They're like, do you want to race FIA F3? It's like, hell yeah, I do. Yeah. And they gave us this offer and everything like that. And then we had a meeting with them in like Miami, and then they sold us on this. And so I raced with Motopark, and we had VW power units. We had Volkswagen or Mercedes in that championship. And it was like a Volkswagen Mercedes battle.
Right.
And that was essentially the feeder series for like DTM.
Okay.
So we ran with DTM as a support race.
Okay. Yeah.
And so a lot of it was actually German based. A lot of German races, even though it was a European championship, like I think 4 races were in Germany.
Right.
But anyways, so I raced with them, and there was 4 drivers. All 4 of us were in the back. And we all complained about the car. And we, at that point, I wasn't a rookie anymore, and neither were some of my teammates. And it's just like, we're all within 0.2 of each other, and we're all 0.7 off. That the whole field was within a second. So it's just like, we had Felix Rosenquist, we had Daniel Juncadella, Roberto Meri, we had Nigel Melker. We had so many good drivers. Whitman, who's a multiple DTM champion. Bottas raced that year prior, and it was funny, he raced with Motopark as well. He taught me how to do starts in F3 with a handbrake. Okay. So the European F3 was the only category in open wheel racing where you could actually modify the car to a certain like to a certain dimension. Like you could do your own aero testing and develop your own wings if it fit in a certain box, you know? So no other series could do that besides British F3 as well, but then they paired up and they became one championship. So, you know, we're driving with a handbrake. I'm like, well, how the hell do you drive with a handbrake? Like, how do you, what is a handbrake? You know?
Yeah.
And so it's a way to preload the crap out of your clutch on a start. So we're doing standing starts.
Right.
What you would do, you would roll up in neutral, go on your mark. It's like a shifter cart, essentially, but not really. So like, but your feet and your hands do different things. So you left foot on the clutch, right foot on the brake. You push like 40 bar in the brake, and then you have this wire attached to a handle that's attached to the pedal that would hold the pedal there. So you could take your foot off and you still have 40 bar, but this thing is like really hard
to pull. Yeah.
You have to pull the absolute crap out of it to hold it. And then you'd put, so now the brake is on, you have your left foot on the clutch and your right foot is flat on the gas.
Right.
And now you're in first gear and you just preload the absolute crap out of the clutch. And so the car starts squatting. So you're like bouncing off the limiter and it's like, and you get to the point where the thing's almost stalling. So it's all clutch slip.
Yeah.
And when the lights go out, you let go of the brake.
And
you can do a sub 3 0 to 60 in like a 250 horsepower car.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
that's a big learning curve.
Yeah. So there's, you know, and then you had like mechanical shutoffs for a flat shift instead of like, it wasn't connected to like a cutoff on the lever. You had the cutoff as a trigger, so you could preload the handle and then like get the trigger and it would go in with a flat shift. So you didn't have to lift to shift.
Yep.
And sometimes the cutoff, like if you're going over bumps and then you would shift, it would kind of hit the limiter sometimes. So you could like preload, like you're driving with one hand a lot of the time because we still had the sequential box.
Right.
So you're, you know, bouncing over the curbs, but you need to shift. You just like preload it and just tap the thing and then it would go into gear. So you could gain like 4/10 a lap with the trigger over a normal thing. So your team really made a difference. Is what I've come down to after all of these explanations.
Yeah, there's a huge ton of variability between teams. If you're developing your own aero,
so
that's huge.
Yeah, you could develop your own barge boards and all that kind of stuff to a certain extent. And of course, budget gets in the way. Like at a certain point, people aren't spending 2 million euros to run F3.
Yep.
But some people were spending €1 million. €1 million to race F3, which was nuts. When it costs about half a million, essentially. So, your team made a difference. So we chose the wrong team. So then after 3 races, we moved to Prema.
So you broke your contract.
Yeah, and they screwed us pretty hard. But it was. We lost a lot of budget. On that.
Was there a lot of actual confrontation? Like, hey, you got what the hell's going on here?
Oh yeah, the team would blame us, we'd blame the team, and it's just like I can understand if I'm the one in the back and all my teammates are in the front, but all 4 of us are, fourth last, third last, second last, and last.
So the other guys, and their parents must have been, making a stink too.
Honestly, I don't even know.
Yeah,
I wasn't even focused on that. But so we left. We were wasting time and money, right?
Valuable time.
If it cost a certain X amount to go to Prema, we did. My manager knew the team owner, and there was another spot, and they had a mechanic, and they had another car, and off we went. So the car was so much better.
Halfway through the season or a couple races?
It was 3 races into the season.
Right.
So we actually did 3 races a weekend. We raced a lot.
Oh, wow.
So we did 27 races in that season.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's a full season.
That was, hence the fitness, right?
Yeah,
we were doing, 2 45-minute races and 1 30-minute race with, practice qualifying. So we had a lot of seat time. It was a great series. And we went to Prema, and I was running 5th, running 6th, top 10s, and there weren't many people in that category that year, but we weren't last.
Right.
I was very far away from last.
Yeah,
I was maybe 4 tenths off instead of 9 tenths off or whatever. So and then in testing, sometimes I'd be better. But then I learned I wasn't an actual Mercedes factory driver, so my engine was a little bit different than the actual factory drivers that were winning the championship on my team. So in testing, I was like on par, and then come to the race, I'm 4 to 5 tenths off.
Right.
On the same track.
Right.
And then I realized engineers could actually change wheel circumference, so they would convince you that you are slower because you're making a mistake on data. You can see it on the data. Oh, look, your line is lower, so you're slower. But they would change your wheel circumference, so your speed is not the same.
Right.
It grows at a different rate and than there. So it might show that you're slower, but you're actually not. Your engine's just slower. So it's harder to see the engine difference when they did that. I see what you're saying,
yeah.
So, but they wouldn't tell you, and they would blame you. So it goes back to that those karting days where people are coaching you wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And which is crazy, right? Even at that level, they're coaching you wrong. And but yeah, like I was convinced. I'm just like, how does it make sense, right? Because you believe in yourself as a driver. It's just you can feel these things, you know these things. It's like I'm doing this in testing, and it's working, and everything's great. And all of a sudden, I'm nowhere. And at like 5 tenths at that level is nowhere. You're gone. And so, it's another learning curve,
the politics.
Oh my God, man. It was killer. Yeah. It was killer. So then I did one more year of F3 after that.
With the same team?
No, different championship. This was an actual true European championship. This was called the European Open.
Okay, so
I did 3 years of F3.
Right. So was the Open Championship go at that same time, or was that like the next year now?
That was the next year.
Okay, so the next year it became a new series, or they changed up the series?
No, it's a completely different series.
Okay, so there's European Open, and then there's each respective country pretty much.
Yeah, at the time they had a Swedish F3, they had an Italian, Spanish, European, British. They had Asian F3. They had Brazilian F3. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot. And so there's the FIA European Series was the standard.
Right.
British was very on par. That's why they merged essentially. But then this championship was the old Spanish series that they made into a European series. So it was under the Spanish sanctioning body. But it was still, you still need an FIA license to race it. That was in 2012.
And was that the most competitive season for you of F3? Or
no, the European, the FIA European was the most competitive. The Formula 3 European Open was the one I almost won.
Okay.
So I was winning most of the year, and I lost it on the last lap of the last race. My teammate crashed into me, and he crossed the line with 3 wheels, and I didn't. And it was just me and him. And so, like, if he finished in front of me, he won. If I finished in front of him, I won.
And he went full bonsai.
Well, yeah, like my car died, and he like still hit me, and yeah, that was very hard.
Right. So after that second year in F3, you're like, I still know something's here. Like I've still got to pursue this. You're living in Tuscany.
Yep.
And you're like. What is the mentality? Like we got to keep at this for one more year.
Yeah, that was the last straw. So we raced the F3 European Open because it was a lot cheaper, like half the cost, and you're racing on all Formula 1 tracks.
Cool.
So we were racing at Spa, Paul Ricard, Monza, Brands Hatch, Hungaroring, Barcelona. Where else? Yeah. Anyways, you get the picture. So it was a full blown, like proper, instead of racing at Norris Ring or instead of racing at wherever.
Yeah.
It was
So that year you guys were fast right away.
Yeah. So I actually had my engineer I had in F3 Italia.
Okay.
So he. We were racing with an Italian team, and he came on board, and they paired us together because we were chose to like win the series. The team wanted us to win, so they had a big push for the championship. And this was with a brand new F3 car, the F312, so brand new chassis. And so it was amazing because I actually got to develop my own car from scratch.
I see.
With an engineer that I knew and that knew me. And we had such a great synergy, and, I could speak Italian now, and I was a much better driver, much smarter driver, much fitter driver as well. So we could try full caster, no problem. We could do all of this stuff. Okay, we got to do full aero, in Mugello, using full aero and full caster, the average driver might be able to do like 5 laps.
Sure.
But, you have to do 20 laps because we need to see how the tires degrade. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. So, it's crazy how all the stars align kind of thing. And so we had, I had a perfect race car, and it's very difficult to achieve that. And some drivers will never experience that in career.
No.
And I had perfect race car, perfect team, just great positioning with myself where I was physically and mentally. And yeah, we were winning a lot.
Right.
And yeah.
So that season ends, you're second in points.
Yeah, I lost by 5 points essentially. And
Yeah.
I was vice champion. I keep saying vice champion because in my mind I won, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So where is the mentality at the end of that season for the career?
Yeah, that was hard because my manager, I had a different manager at the time, and he was Jacques Villeneuve's manager as well, and Simon Pagenaud's manager. And he managed a lot of top drivers, and I was kind of like on the bottom of his list. So it's like the fact that I didn't win was hard for him to sell me to sponsors.
Sure.
Why would they sponsor someone when they can sponsor this champion kind of thing? So I didn't race for a year.
Okay.
And then
and still lived in Tuscany.
Oh no, actually, sorry. I was still living in Tuscany. My right before the last race of F3 European Open, I did a GP2 test.
Okay.
With Racing Engineering, arguably one of the best teams. It was like a mini Formula One team.
Right.
Their facility in Spain was amazing. It was like royally owned and stuff, and it was amazing. And an amazing car. Even it matched my helmet, kind of thing. It was just like, wow, this is too good to be true, right? Best day of my life for sure.
Yeah.
And so yeah, then after that, I didn't actually race for almost a whole year.
Right.
And then I got a call to race the Singaporean Grand Prix in GP2.
Wow.
On a Wednesday, and the race was Friday.
Okay.
I hadn't been in a car for a year.
Yeah, and only been in a GP2 once.
Yeah. So in that test, I actually did well. I was only a second off the pace on my first time in the car.
Yep.
And I think that was the only car I was afraid to go full throttle in, because it was essentially 1-to-1 power to weight ratio. You had 620 horsepower. The car weighed 650 kilos or whatever it did. It put out like 3,000 pounds of downforce, carbon brakes. You had a 4-liter V8, Zytec, just 8 to like 2 exhaust. It just, the thing was so loud. And it do 300 kilometers an hour. It did 0 to 200 kilometers an hour in 6 seconds.
Holy cow.
So the F1 cars now do it in 5 seconds on a good start. We could do it in 6.
So that was a huge jump.
That was massive. They were 30 seconds a lot faster than F3.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's not even in the same ballpark.
That's like a street car to an F3 car difference.
Yeah.
And then obviously the lower you go in the time, the harder it is to separate seconds, right? So another 30 seconds. We were only 5 seconds off F1.
Wow. So that's full on then. Now you're racing. Like
Yep.
Like big time. Or now you're like, yeah, it was scary.
You know what? No, I loved it. It was just, it's, you get anxious, but I wanted to be there.
Right.
I needed to be there. I was there already, mentally. Just I wasn't there physically. So I was there physically. I was very relaxed.
Yeah.
And but it was very hard because I hadn't raced in a year. I did some World Series testing, World Series Renault, so Auto GP and stuff like that. Nothing really formulated. And I was training constantly because that's the only thing I could do. So that's when I was doing the 9 times a week, like no alcohol, only water, no sugar. Like I was 6% body fat. Just I'm ready for
That's clean
anything.
living.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was tough, but yeah, that was my life and I loved it. And it's just, I got the call from my manager, and so we got a loophole the way we raced GP2. I didn't spend $1. I just spent my flight kind of thing. I didn't spend $1 racing GP2. And I get a call on Wednesday, like, yeah, Gmo, I have some good news. He was a bit cheeky about it too. He's like, yeah, so, I got you a race at Singapore kind of thing. And so with GP2, the rules state you have to have 2 cars on the grid as like no question. So if one of your drivers can't make it, you have to fill that seat. So, excuse me, the team I raced with was Trident, Italian team. And they were a great team because they developed a lot of drivers. A lot of drivers were racing with them throughout that year. I think about 5 or 6 different drivers were racing with them. And their previous driver, the previous race wasn't or couldn't pay or couldn't fulfill whatever they needed to fulfill. So the seat was open. And because I had a promising GP2 test the year prior and I was fit and ready to go, training at Formula Medicine, they in Italy kind of thing, spoke Italian, it fit. So they said, yeah, let's give him a shot kind of thing. And racing, my manager said it'll be better to generate sponsorship, right? It looks better if Gmo's racing GP2
Sure.
to get sponsorship. And I was actually the first Canadian to race that series.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. That was before Latifi, before Stroll. Well, Stroll didn't, I don't think he raced.
He made the jump, yeah.
It wasn't called F2 yet. It was still called GP2.
Right.
So
did Robbie not race any GP?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I guess
don't
not,
think so.
Yeah.
I think he tested. He was testing with Marussia at that time. This was 2013.
Okay.
So this is the last year of the naturally aspirated F1 cars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. So big deal.
Big deal. It was a big deal, and I didn't even realize it until people said, "Oh yeah, we haven't had a Canadian here yet." I was just like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
Like I never really think about these things, but yeah.
Sure.
So, I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
I'm proud of that.
So you fly over to Singapore.
Yeah, I missed my flight too. It was stressful.
And you get there, the day before the race?
So I did. So I got the call Wednesday. I was on a simulator like Thursday in Modena. And then I was on a flight that like midnight that day. And so I was there Thursday. Yeah.
And then how'd it go? How'd practice go? How did the qualifying go? How'd the race go?
Well, I went to the medical center for a heat stroke, but we'll get to that. That's a big story. For sure, I almost died, for sure. It was very weird sensation. I lost a lot of vision, and I still finished the race, though. But so practice, okay, GP2 is you get no seat time, okay? These cars want to kill you in every way. You're accelerating at like 1G almost all the time. So like you can like relax and your head just like stays there. So Singapore has 22 corners. And it's a 5-kilometer lap, and it's almost 2 minutes in a GP2 car.
Wow.
So think about how like in F1 they do like 155s or 50 whatever. Yeah. So the pole GP2 car was as fast, or if not faster, than the last place F1 car.
Okay.
At the time. So we didn't have power steering though, or power brakes, or traction control or anything like that. Well, neither did they with traction, but no power steering or power brakes, no power assist.
Wow.
So we had Pirelli tires though, which were absolute garbage. So the challenge was you had to drive 2 seconds under your pace. So like, how do you do that?
You mean qualifying?
In practice and just in the race, not in qualifying.
Oh.
So to make the tires last, or else they would be gone.
Sorry. I get what you're saying. Yeah. I thought you had to go sub 2 seconds your pace. No. You had to drive 2 seconds slower just to make the tires last.
Correct. So qualifying was the only time you drove 100%.
Okay.
And in qualifying, you get 2 laps, or 4 laps total, or 6 laps total. Like out, push, in, out, push, in, and that's it.
Yeah.
You don't have enough tires to do anything else. But you've never spent any time pushing the car 100% because it won't last. So how the hell do you do that? I spent my whole life driving at 100%. Now, the opportunity of my lifetime, I have to drive slower, but still be fast.
Yeah.
But like can't be too fast, but you can't be too slow.
Yeah.
But you can only be fast here, but you can't be fast here.
Sure.
It's like, how the hell, like what's 2 seconds?
Yeah.
Is this 2 seconds? No. Oh, that was 4 seconds. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Is this 2 seconds? No, that was half a second. So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
So I had to learn a whole new way of driving in 12 laps. They're like, on your full practice session, you get 12 laps, and then you go into qualifying, and then you race.
Yeah.
So by the time I raced, I had like 20 laps. And yeah, so and Singapore itself is right on the equator, is like 90% humidity.
She's hot.
Is 35 degrees Celsius. Track temp was 65 degrees Celsius. And, we didn't have any power assist or anything. So, you have this crazy engine like this far from your back that you can feel. The brakes get to 1,000 degrees Celsius of like,
that's hot.
At when you're full brake, you have to kick, literally when you brake, you have to kick down a door of pressure every time. You have to generate 110 bar in the brake lines by yourself.
Huge. Every
corner, all the time, because it can. And if you're not getting there, then you're at a disadvantage.
You're slow.
And you're slow.
Yeah.
Like if you're not even getting close to that, you may as well just go home.
Right.
Because all these guys can race F1, and all these guys are ready to kill you kind of thing. And it was serious. And, my vision points were so off. Like I hadn't been in a car for a year. Now I'm driving a car that does 0 to 200 in 6 seconds. So it's just like, now is the time to put everything kind of into one moment. All of my racing experience, everything, all of my training, everything into this moment, mentally, physically, spiritually. And, I loved it. It was the worst and best time of my life, my race in Singapore. And, but yeah, even the qualifying, putting brand new super softs on and pushing 100% is one of the best feelings ever.
For sure.
Because it just works. If you have understeer, you just don't have understeer anymore. For one lap only. You might have an imbalance, but new super softs,
doesn't
just go.
matter.
So that's why qualifying is so tight in that category.
Right.
And, but like my first set of new tires, I go to brake and I'm like, I had to brake and accelerate again because it was just like
crazy.
We were hitting like 4.5 Gs in braking.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And on a street circuit, right? So it wasn't even a proper paved circuit.
Yeah.
So it was like the grip was still limited. But I did. It was an hour-long race with a pit stop. I actually had the fastest pit lane, like in out.
Oh, good.
Of the weekend. So
yeah, that's legit.
Woo. I finished last.
Didn't get a penalty though.
No.
Yeah.
Finished last my first race. I didn't get lapped.
Yeah.
So that's good. But I could only see my reference points by the end of the race because I had so much tunnel vision.
You were passing out.
And
essentially.
Yeah, like imagine just being in a sauna, wearing, your Nomex. You race NASCAR, I don't have to tell you this.
Yeah.
But imagine
I've been hot before.
Imagine like, pushing to your physical limit. Yeah. Your heart rate is 160, 170 for an hour at that temperature. It does stuff to you, right? Yeah. You start losing clarity. You start, losing finesse.
Oh yeah.
And those cars are direct. Like if you're off by half a foot, you're in a wall, like a big wall, and you're hitting hard.
Fast.
We're doing like, I don't know what our top speed was, like 280 in the street. Right. So like it's fast. And you can't make a mistake. So all I could see was my reference points by the end of it. And I could you have breathing points too, and in that level. So it's like you have breathing points, shifting points. You have reference points for everything. And if you don't breathe, like you have to stop kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because the thing is forcing you into the seat so much, and that alone is like compressing your rib cage. You have belts that are super tight. So again, that kind of shifter sensation where you can't breathe to your full lung capacity either. You have like half your lung capacity. And yeah, and it's hot. And we raced at 2 p.m. F1 races
That's the worst
there.
time.
If you watch the F1 drivers come off the track there, you know, that's at night and they're like stumbling and fumbling.
Mm-hmm.
We raced in the afternoon. So we like, it was bad. It was tough.
So it was a 2-race weekend.
Yep. We had the feature race was on the Saturday. It was a 1 hour long race with a pit stop. And then we had like a sprint race. It was 45 minutes on Sunday.
Okay.
That we also had one pit stop.
So the first one, you're freaking barely make it through.
Yeah.
And but you finished.
I just finished. I was on the radio. I'm like, I need a doctor when I get to Parc Fermé. Like, I don't know, because I'm so like in the zone.
Yeah.
In that mental, like subconscious zone. I don't even know if I'm gonna be alive when I stop. Like, even if I die in this car, I will be happy. Like, my life is complete right now. I just finished a GP2 race, the Singaporean Grand Prix, after, you know, coming all, you know, with all my history, being disadvantaged politically, whatever, and, you know, not having crazy budget all the time.
Sure.
And it's just like, I'm happy. This is great. And my engineer is like, die Gimo, which doesn't mean die. It means like, come on in Italian.
Okay.
So sorry. I'm just, after I said, I'm like, I don't know. I didn't mean like die. It means, in Italian, die means come on.
Okay.
So they're really motivating me. And they praised me a lot for it because they said, Gimo, all these, you know, spoiled rich kids come here like, oh, my hands hurt. Oh, this hurts. I don't like this. I don't like that. Like, you just came in here and just literally died for us kind of thing. You're my hero. And it's about time, like, we worked with like a real like driver, right? So that was great. But yeah, I went to the medical center. Did you have to get pulled out of the car? No. So I stopped. The cool down lap was such a bad experience because all the wind stops. Yeah. Like, I lifted my visor. It felt like someone had a hairdryer. It was hotter outside. Yeah, it was hotter with the visor open than with it closed. Yeah. So, I had to keep it closed. So we stopped. I go in the Parc Fermé. I'm like, okay, I need to get out of here. I jumped up. That was my first mistake. All the blood came out of my head, and I was just like passed out. And I couldn't feel my fingertips. I couldn't feel my feet either because you're laying down, essentially in the car, and everything above my heart level was fuzzy. So like my head. My fingertips, right, because they're like right here in your toes, right, because your feet are at the same height your hands almost. And so I was just like, so I start having these like, what the hell's going on? Like, why can't I feel my fingertips? And then like I was like for sure getting some crazy brain fade or something. I was like not hallucinating, but like I was really declining confused. Fast. I was like getting severe heat stroke fast. Yeah. Because I'm just getting hot now. Because I'm hot, so now I stopped. There's no air going into my helmet. Like I'm just cooking right now.
And this is the cool down lap. Oh no, this is after you jump out.
Yeah, I shot out in Parc Fermé, and so I went on my tire. I'm like, oh no, the tire's way too hot. And then I just grabbed this little Singaporean marshal, and I'm like, help me. Like I need help. And so he drags me like behind a fire truck because that was the only shade there was. It was 2:00 in the afternoon. There was barely any shade. The guy gives me a bottle of water. I like squeezed it and like chugged it, and it was like hot as hell because it was sitting in the sun. I'm like, oh my god. So I'm just like, I'm starting to get like an anxiety attack, I know, panic attack,
especially in the heat, right?
Yeah, I was getting like a panic attack, and I felt like I had to go to the washroom. I'm like, oh my god, I have to pee. I don't know what's going on. And then they're like, oh, I don't have to pee. And I'm like, what's going on? Oh, I still can't feel my hands. And then they're like, okay, you need to come with us now. And the ambulance was there, and I'm just like, I'm not making any sense. Going into the ambulance, full blown AC, and they're trying to put a intravenous in me. I'm like, okay, great, and they can't get an intravenous in me because all my veins are like collapsed. I have like barely any blood pressure. So they're just like stabbing me at this point. And I'm just like, I'm already kind of freaked out because I'm, you're very in tune with your body at that point.
Sure.
And I wasn't anymore. So it was very foreign, and I was just getting scared. And I just feel all this pain, and they're like, oh, you have to calm down. You're losing a lot of blood. I'm like, what? I looked down, and like my whole arm was full of blood because they're just stabbing my arm trying to get this thing in my arm because I'm like declining. And I don't know, these people obviously aren't trained very well because I'm just like, they're trying to do it in my wrist actually. And I'm like, look, I have a vein right here, put it right there. And they're just like, no, we have to do it here. I'm like, okay. And so, whatever. So I've never had a panic attack before, but I had a full-blown panic attack. My airways locked open and I started hyperventilating. Like, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then just blood was like gushing out of my arm. Because, like, I don't know whether they hit an artery or something. Maybe not, but, like...
What the heck?
I'm like, I'm going to die in this fucking ambulance. And, like, so the poor, like, media girl of our team was the only one there. She came with us in the ambulance. She's, like, looking at me like, what's going on? And so I had to, like, kind of have a little bit of an outer-body experience. I'm like, okay, I need to calm down now. And I just, like, focused on my breathing. Took a huge breath. My airways unlocked themselves, and I started breathing normally. And I kind of came back to normal, probably, getting cooler, generating some blood pressure. They put like a shit ton of ice all over me. And then I was in the medical center, completely naked with frozen towels being rotated all over my body for 2 hours. And my temperature was still 38 degrees. I still had a fever.
Holy cow, dude.
Yeah. So the FIA had a big problem with that. Because it was a big liability. And they're like, well, you can't race tomorrow. And I said, yeah, I can. I'm fine.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you're not fit enough to race. I'm just like, that's impossible. I spend my whole life training. And so Dr. Ceccarelli, the owner of Formula Medicine, was in this room. And he's like, Gimo's like our fittest driver. He develops our tests. If there's anyone that can debut at Singapore, it's him. And I'm like giving this FA doctor shit because I'm like, what do you expect us to do? He's like, oh, well, if you were fitter, you maybe would have had an average heartbeat of 10 beats less, which means you're burning less calories, which means you're generating less heat. I'm like, you think I'm the one generating all of this heat that's causing me to have a heat stroke? It's like, you could sit there for an hour and have heat stroke and not exert any energy. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're trying to blame me. Right? Of course, they're trying to blame me, not the fact that they can't schedule a race, but properly to not have people, die. So they're like, well, have any other drivers had issues? We're like, well, we don't know. Everyone just like disappeared. I wonder why. So they did an investigation. Like 8 drivers had heat stroke after that race. A driver actually crashed on the in lap of going into Parc Fermé because they probably couldn't see anymore in the peripherals. And so it's, there was a big problem.
Yeah, no
kidding. And so I'm like, well, what do I have to do? They're like, well, what's your resting heart rate? I said 60 beats per minute. What's your blood pressure? It's 120/70. It's like, okay, you come in here, this office at 6 o'clock in the morning. If your heart rate is not 60 beats per minute and your blood pressure is not 120/70, you're not going to race. If it's any different, you're not racing. I said, bet. No problem. Like, this is my jam. I spent my entire life like controlling my heartbeat and focusing on stuff. So I show up at 6 a.m., heart rate 60, blood pressure is 120/70 exactly. And she's like, all right,
nice.
See you later.
Yeah.
And I did the race, and luckily it was 45 minutes less because the same thing would have happened.
Was it at the same time the next day?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I raced the next day. Yeah.
So another hot one.
Yeah, but it was 45 minutes instead of an hour, so 15 minutes makes a big difference. And I think I finished like 4th last instead of last.
But
so
a big improvement.
Yeah. And it was great. So the team let me race the last race in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, really? So they were that impressed, with, I guess, the improvement and your grit.
Yeah.
That they said, come to Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
Cool.
And then Singapore never raced, GP2 never raced at Singapore ever again.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, why. So, and then Abu Dhabi was great. That was a great experience, just because it was a desert. So, the desert was so much cooler.
Well, it was. Yeah, it's dry in the desert.
Yeah, that's right. 300-kilometer-hour wind does something to you.
Yep.
So it was a proper racetrack too. So
yeah,
that was that was easy because you're driving under the limit. So it's just like, I can do this all day.
Right.
You know, and then after I trained, after that incident with the heat stroke, I could just hit max heart rate nonstop just because I don't know, I felt more pain than that max heart rate. So it was
New threshold.
Yeah, new threshold unlocked.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure in NASCAR you guys get super hot in the cars too. You don't have the wind to
Yeah, most ports easy because you get a big cross breeze.
Okay.
I got 2 years ago at Sunset, twice now at Sunset. We did one race at Sunset that was 268 laps green. And it so that's
rare for NASCAR, right?
That one was a hot long
I need a
one.
yellow over here. Boom.
And then 2 years ago, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, I guess I thought I was really fit. Going into it, I was riding my bicycle like a whole ton.
Sure.
And, wanted to save the weight and not run the cool suit.
Yep.
And then I think I had an exhaust leak too.
Nice.
So I was dying, dying, like not the same as you, but I know I get the feeling.
Yeah.
And the last like 20 laps, like I thought I was a lap down in 9th, but I was battling for 5th on the lead lap. And I couldn't comprehend what my crew chief or spotter was saying.
Right.
Like it didn't
Like
compute.
you could hear him, but you couldn't process.
Didn't compute.
Yeah.
And then, so it was green for so long, and then it was a green-white checkered, and I forgot to upshift to 4th. So, like, I wheel hopped going into the corner because I just didn't upshift all the way. But anyway, still finished 6th, and I got out of the car, and John's going to love hearing about this. He goes, you were fucked up, dude. Like I don't know if it was I just got a bunch of oxygen back if I had carbon monoxide poisoning.
Oh, probably. Have you had an exhaust
leak? He's like, your pupils were like this, covered your whole eyes, and you wouldn't shut up for like 2 hours. He's like, dude, it was like you were on drugs. You were just talking to everyone about everything. He's like, we were the last guys on pit road on the racetrack because you wouldn't stop talking.
That's so funny.
So that's my only experience with something like that.
And you got leaded fuel probably in those things too.
Dude, I don't know what it was, but I was pinned after the race. I never felt better when I got that oxygen.
Yep. Oxygen helps. That's great.
It's weird. So Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
I've been to that track, just freaking cool place.
Marina, yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. So what is kind of, again, I keep asking this question, but I think it's important. Like, how are you now conceptualizing your career at this time?
I'm trying to get the best result possible.
Right.
And my managers is talking to a lot of sponsors, and we're actually trying to formulate some sponsorship
to go to GP2
to race GP2 full time
the season. Okay.
And to get some F1 testing.
Right.
So the motivation's back on, and Abu Dhabi, I finished mid-pack, I think 15th. 15th was my highest place. Like every race I finished one or a couple of places higher. So I had a constant progression. And so we spent the off season, and then I did a test after, and it was just like, I might be racing GP2 the next year. So we actually approached Caterham for to race. My sponsor actually wanted to race with Caterham because they were the only team that had an F1 team and a GP2 team.
Okay.
At the same time. So
and I'm always curious because everyone blows their brains out trying to find sponsorship. How did you land that sponsor? Was it through your manager?
My manager, yeah.
Okay.
He had the connects, and it was with Texco. Texco, the Costco of the UK.
Okay.
What's it called? Texco. I don't even remember what it's called now. You can Tesco. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
You can tell that we didn't get the sponsorship because I don't know. I forget what it's called. And I probably blocked that out of my brain because this is the worst story ever of how my, climax of my career ended.
Sure.
We had full budget. We had 3 million euros to spend on 2 years of.
And this is with GP2. Them? With that Caterham. Sponsor?
Yeah.
The Tesco sponsor?
Tesco,
okay.
Yeah. They
wow.
They were allegedly bringing 3 million euros for a 2-year program.
That must have felt amazing. I know what it's like to land small deals compared to that. And it's like, it's not as good as winning a race, but it feels damn good to know you're going to go racing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And especially, the feeder series for F1.
Yeah.
As like the first Canadian kind of, having even that political hype as well. Everything helps at that point,
Sure.
right? So we sat down with Caterham in the F1 factory, because that's where their team is based, in Oxfordshire, England. And I shook hands with everyone. We had a deal to do 2 years full blown with Formula One testing. And so and then if everything went well, if we won and got to a certain level by my second year of GP2, we were racing Formula One with Caterham. Politics aside, if everything goes well.
Yeah.
Best case scenario. Which is pretty good.
That's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
Now you've got to perform.
Yeah. So for me, there was no stress to perform. Like, I'm going to perform as hard as I can regardless.
Right.
And so I'm just like, let's go. Let's go. So the sponsor wanted the entire car their color, custom livery, of course. You're spending 3 million euros, you get whatever you want. But no, you don't. Not with Caterham. So Caterham declined the right? That was probably the hardest pill to swallow. So they declined the deal because Texaco wanted the car full, like
that color.
That their colors only, nobody else.
Right.
Why not? Caterham said no, and they couldn't find an agreement. So Caterham said no because the F2 car or the GP2 car got more TV time than their F1 car. So all of their F1, the entire F1 livery, the exact livery was on the F2 car, on the GP2 car. So for my sponsor, who wanted, to eventually sponsor Formula One, he started GP2. It's a lot cheaper than you go into F1. He had to outbid 10 million euro to get to that real estate, to buy the real estate off the sponsors. And obviously they didn't do that, and we couldn't secure anything. And
so you couldn't take that sponsor and go to another team?
Because they wanted to race F1, and they wanted an F1 team. And Caterham was the only team that had a GP2 and F1 team. It was the only bridge that they felt comfortable
crossing from GP2 to F1.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they were like an established business.
Sure, so they needed that.
And then they went bankrupt. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how racing works, right?
Right. Too big to fail.
Yeah. But no, in the sponsor's eyes, it makes sense, right? Because Caterham is a very prestigious brand in itself.
So the team kibosh is the deal.
Yeah. And I'm devastated, right?
Yeah.
Then I trained a lot. I had a potential gig to race Super Formula in Japan, and with Mugen Honda to do a test. And if I impressed them, I would be making money with contract with Mugen Honda, racing in Japan and living in Japan full time.
Wow.
So I'm just like, well, it's maybe a sidestep. At that point, it's a sidestep, which is crazy to think about now. Like, Super Formula is a sidestep, but it was a sidestep. And those cars were arguably faster than GP2 because they had open tires. So they had a lot of tire grip and they were fast. They're very, very fast. So again, still spending months training like crazy. Like, I'm preparing to drive a Formula One car essentially.
Right.
A lot of neck, a lot of cardio, just everything. I didn't want to repeat Singapore again as well. So a lot of heat training, hence the kilometer intervals and the heat and all that stuff. That's why we were doing that. And 2 weeks before this test that was secured for me, my seat got bought out for 80,000 euro by the Fabio Lemer, by the winner of the GP2 series that I raced in that year. And he tested and then never actually did anything with the test. So I think, I don't know, he just tested it for fun or whatever, or just didn't want to go race Super Formula. But yeah, I lost that opportunity too.
Ugh.
And then spent maybe another, 8 months and then moved back to North America.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the European experiment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess was it was it a tough shift mentally to say, okay, kind of giving up on the European dream? Or the dream of F1?
It was, that was it. I wanted to go the IndyCar route.
Yep.
I wanted to race at the highest level of what I could.
Yep.
Right. So the next best thing was IndyCar. So I was looking to get into Indy Lights when I moved back home. A lot of bullshit, but that didn't happen. But yeah, it's like, I think it's a pill I'm still trying to swallow as well, and maybe something I'll never really get over.
Yeah.
But definitely moved on. That was 10 years ago now. But
no, it never goes away, really.
No, it's it was hard, very, very hard. To do that, to experience that and go through that, and like you get brought up so much, and then you crash down pretty hard. Yeah, just thinking about racing, it now, I'm getting like emotional. But yeah, it's racing. That's exactly what it is. It's the bullshit that for some reason we love to do. Like the amount of time we spent in a positive headspace somehow trumps the 99% time we're in turmoil and stress and anxiety and of trying to race. But like that half-hour session or that 1 hour race trumps all of it, and that's you said it perfectly. It's racing.
Yeah. It's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
Absolutely.
And more often than not, the lowest of lows.
Yeah, yet they still balance out somehow.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I started racing GT cars with Maserati using some Italian connects, and I debuted the GT4 Maserati Gran Turismo.
Cool.
In Pro World Challenge. So I actually was racing with the GT1 MC12 Maserati crew that ran that car. They were running this GT4 car because it was by Maserati.
Right.
So that was Maserati's crew. And so I was racing Pro World Challenge with these awesome like Le Mans engineers, and it's all Italian, so we're like speaking Italian, and it felt really good, honestly, to kind of race in like VIR, but like be like swearing in Italian and doing all this stuff, and people are like, what the hell is this guy saying over here? And it's just it was great. It was that was a really cool experience. That didn't formulate, unfortunately, but they gave me a great opportunity as well. We were sponsored by Chase Bank, and they gave me another race in their Trofeo series as well to try and help me solidify some sponsorship. And we had some bad luck mechanical stuff, and we did really well. Like we sold the car pretty much. Like our purpose was to do really well so people buy the car.
Sure.
A lot of people bought the car, so they're like, well, Jimmo, you can do some GT4 races or Pirelli World Trofeo races, I should say, Maserati Trofeo races. It's sponsored by Chase Bank. We want the car to win. The sponsor wants them to win, so we're going to use you to try and do that. And then I was second place and the tire blew out. So it's just it kept yeah, man. It's just like, okay, I'm going to nail another opportunity. Nope.
Yeah.
Nice hole in the tire.
It's so hard with those opportunities, right? Because, you look at even a guy who's like, okay, that guy should win, and this is a jump into another series, and he's got that opportunity, and more often than not, he doesn't win the race. It doesn't pan out. Like, and then, where you look at guys where the old mentality, say I'm using NASCAR because I know it best,
sure,
of in the 90s, you'd spend 5, 6, 7, 8 years building your notebook, and then, now you're 32, 33, now you're going to win some races.
Right.
It's changed so much now, and it's so, one, there's no testing anymore, and now you're expected to go in there. You've got your one opportunity or two opportunities if you don't have unlimited money.
Yeah.
And you've got to execute, and the problem is, just the nature of racing is so much is out of your control. Yeah. Like it is what it is.
It's definitely a team sport. Yeah, that's for sure. And we're in the entertainment business. It's more of entertainment than it is almost a sport. For us, it's a sport. For us, it's life, right? It's what we eat and drink and breathe. But for for people, it's who's gonna crash, and I like M&Ms. That's an M&M car. Cool, let's go.
Yeah.
And and the series favor that because it brings in numbers, right? So it's there's no more testing anymore because the budget's too high for people to race. So what can we cut? We're not going to cut marketing. We're going to cut whatever, travel and budget and testing.
Yep.
You know how to drive.
Yeah,
You'll be
show
fine.
up and you get your 5 laps.
We're
of practice.
helping you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can't perfect what you're doing, and you can't get the seat time and marketing tools to secure sponsorship. And it's you have to. The one thing I regret is maybe not focusing more on my marketability. I put all of my focus into my body and my ability and my skill rather than being a poster boy.
Weren't you a model?
I was.
You're the poster boy.
I became a model. During the Maserati times. When was it? It was 2015. I did my first headshots in Italy, and then as I was moving back, I kind of tried to do it over here. I was with an agency, a male modeling agency.
How did this come about?
So random. I don't know. Like, I honestly have to think about it. I like fashion. I like.
Sure.
I thought I liked modeling. I thought I liked that kind of lifestyle in a way. Still focusing on fitness and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think I needed a bit of a change. I was going into a bit of too much of a dark place after sponsorship deals fall through, and after I moved back from Italy. So I kind of went into a different direction. Maybe I could, do some modeling and get maybe some more traction. And that's kind of how I grew more Instagram followers and more with fashion. It's like, he races cars and he's like
a second angle,
an underwear model kind of thing. And ironically, I made most of my money doing hand modeling.
No way.
Yeah, man. And it was the stupidest money you could ever make. Like,
really,
you work maybe 10 minutes and you make like $1,200. So it's just like, okay, can I get more jobs like this, please?
Yeah.
But so the irony is that you get paid more for hand modeling stuff than actual like swimwear and stuff. But I was too short to be a runway model.
Okay.
I was like an inch too short. I'm 6 feet tall, so you need to be like 6'1". I couldn't do runway, which was tough. So
that's what pays.
Yeah, that's where you get, if you can do runway, you can do everything kind of thing. And but I tried anyways. I tried doing men's fashion and high fashion, swimsuit, swimwear model, underwear model, and hand modeling. And I hated it. The industry is so toxic. It's so they treat you really like a mannequin. That's a French word for model, right? Is mannequin.
Right.
So it's they treat you like an object, because that's essentially what you are. You don't have an opinion. You don't have a voice, and I don't like that. I want to develop something. I want to try and make it better. I want to add my input to it as a driver. You're always, from when you're beginning, how can we make this better? How can we do this? How can you tap into what you need? How can I help you do this better, kind of thing? It's just like, shut up and stand there instead. And it's like, I don't like that. That's toxic. And just, it's such a saturated market too. And just for me, just as a white, European male kind of thing, that's a very saturated market.
Sure.
So they told me to grow my hair out. So I had like really long hair. I had, as much of a beard as I could grow, just to kind of separate my look a little bit. So, you can put your hair up, you can, tie it back, you can wear it down. You have a lot more different looks. You're more of a chameleon that way, instead of just having short hair and just, doing a duck face. You can do a lot more dynamic stuff. So we were trying different angles, but yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, man.
So that was no fun.
No, it was horrible. I didn't like it. It's a toxic environment, I didn't even get a taste, really.
Right.
Like modeling in Canada, it's, I wasn't doing any runway or anything like that. And I'm not a supermodel or anything like that. So I didn't really get the same kind of attention, but
Sure.
it's, it's a political world, and it has its own pros and cons and stuff like that. It was a good idea, but I still like to, show off some cool fits on Instagram and stuff like that, and use some of that experience. And it got me more into actually working with cameras and a lot of tech. And I, fly drones and, go into ND filters and change aperture and do all this other kind of stuff, and really tap into the photography and videography side of it.
Yeah.
Because of, the modeling shows you what all that stuff's about. And yeah, so it's interesting how my life's kind of evolved from racing GP2 to
Yep.
then modeling and then coaching now. So,
Yeah. That's like, I think innately that, if you're proficient or, really good at something,
mm-hmm.
you have a desire to teach people. I think, a lot of highly successful business people become mentors because it's just in our DNA to do that.
Yeah. So, I was doing a lot of instructing just with different manufacturers and with event agencies and stuff like that to make some money, because that was the easiest way to kind of
That's what you do as a race car driver.
Yeah. That's right. I didn't go to post-secondary school. I moved to Italy after I graduated high school. So I don't know. I don't have any degree or anything.
Yeah.
So this is my degree kind of thing.
Yep.
And then COVID happened, pandemic happened, and all that stopped.
Right.
So I was like, what can I do? And karting was the only thing you could do in the racing world, because it was individualized. Everyone was outside. As long as there's no spectators, everyone's 6 feet apart. You wear a mask. You could do it legally. So I started racing with Daryl Timmers' and Curtis Fox's team. And
cool.
Not racing, coaching.
Yeah.
Doing some races here and there, but just to keep the sanity, right?
Of course.
And just to actually show the kids what you're talking about, and you don't want to listen to me, okay?
Yeah.
Get back there.
That's good.
But like you said, when you teach people, you really I really saw a big part of myself in these kids a lot. I was just like, I wish I had me when I was your age, and you're doing exactly what I used to do as a kid. So this is exactly how to fix it, because I lived through this and I had to do it myself. So now I'm telling you how to do it. And a lot of the time it works, and a lot of the time it's just like squirrel,
Yeah.
or I want to play soccer. I want French fries.
Yeah.
My feet are wet. My motor's slow.
That's good.
Change my motor.
You still watch a lot of racing? Do you follow a lot of racing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I ask all the guys who follow racing, okay, if you could take one series, one form of motorsports, whatever it is, and elevate it to the visibility that F1 gets, what would it be? Like, hey, the world needs to see this racing because it's good racing.
It already exists. It's MotoGP, I
Okay.
think. MotoGP is amazing. I saw a MotoGP race before, and you can't have races like that in F1 or with any kind of downforce, really.
Right.
And because they're so small, they can go 3 wide, or they can, both be at the apex at the same time. And
True.
Just like tuck the elbow in and the knee in, and then, pull it back out when you're past.
Yeah.
And that in Italy anyways, is massive sport, almost more than Formula One.
Really?
You have soccer, then you have the church, and then you have Ferrari and F1, and then you have Ducati and MotoGP and Valentino Rossi. He's a saint in himself. So
that's a very good point. I think I saw a viral clip going around the other day that was like Rossi and Stoner at Laguna Seca, this unbelievable battle.
That was in 2008, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I remember seeing that live. That was not live, but like live on the TV.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And then him and Jorge Lorenzo in Barcelona.
Okay.
That's another amazing one.
Yeah, and I don't follow it enough, but like every time I see it, it's just like, that's stupid. Like, I can't believe they're doing
the amount
that.
of mental strength, because at that level, you have to be an Olympic athlete. You have to perform your absolute best you've ever done in that moment right now.
Yeah.
And you're the only one that can decide whether you do that or not. Because you're ready physically, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And can you do it with all the pressure, all of the what ifs and anxiety, and they do it, and it's amazing. Like, it makes you anxious,
Yeah, I got to watch more of that.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's something that I would suggest people watch more.
Okay.
Because it's crazy. They have their own politics, of course. But yeah, these guys are just insane. They're awesome.
Yeah. So before I let you go, you've seen so much of the path of the motorsports career. What advice do you have for young kids who want to be professional race car drivers?
That's a loaded question. No, that's a good question. It's I would suggest that there's so many ways I can go with this. What's the best way I can put it? Believe in yourself. It sounds corny, but literally, like, tap into your self-conscious and tell yourself that you can do it, and if you can't do it, try and figure out how to do it. Don't just give up. Don't stop because, I'm not good enough. It's like, I would get angry, when I couldn't do it, because I wanted to do it. I couldn't do it. So I didn't give up. I tried and I tried. And eventually you get it. If you put in the work, eventually it has to happen. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't, maybe you have to put more work than other people, or maybe your ways, you have a different destiny than someone else. You can't maybe follow somebody.
Sure.
Your career goes this way, but you have to put in the work you can and get the best result you can with the cards you're dealt. And racing's a big money sport, and it limits everybody. But if you have the opportunity, don't waste it because you think you're not good enough.
Yeah, that's a good point, because so few people get the opportunity.
Yeah. Enjoy the moment and just be free. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's a good way to end it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, share it with some friends. Hit subscribe on the YouTube. Hit subscribe on Spotify and Apple. See you guys next week.